is cold. When a cold front comes in, you think that's really going to get the deer moving, but is it? There is a recipe to how this all works. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. You know, I know a lot of cold-blooded hunters when it comes to making the shot happen. Steve Bartilla, Mark Kaiser, Brad Fenson, all those guys are excellent hunters. I very much admire what they do. But when it comes to your approach to deer hunting, you should think cold-blooded more in the terms of the weather. And that's something that I've really learned over the years through guys like Charlie Alsheimer and John Trout and Dave Henderson and some of the best hunters, Gary Clancy, that I've ever got to hunt with.
Weather can be extreme enough where deer do not want to move at all. High winds, whiteout blizzards, downpouring rain, they're gonna hold up. Now severe cold, they also will, well, they'll get into a little bundle and not move until there's a break, or they just simply need to get up and get some calories.
A lot of times when we get to this late season, I'm hunting in Nebraska right now. My friends Scott and Kayla Fink at Goose Creek Outfitters, it's a great place to hunt, but everybody thinks when I'm coming out here, it's November, mid-November, and they think, ooh, it's gonna be really cold, and those deer are really, that's gonna really get those deer moving. Charlie Alsheimer taught me this. When cold weather hits, especially during November gun hunting seasons, Charlie always taught me that the best deer activity was going to be when that temperature was about 10 degrees below normal.
Especially if the rut's going on, rest assured, if there's any break in that weather, things are back to normal like that. If you're late season hunting though, and there's severe cold coming in, maybe associated with weather or not, really look out for deer hibernating, holding up and not wanting to burn calories.
Like out here, the normal low temperature is about 30, 35 this time of year. If that drops to 0 and below, you would think, oh, it's gonna get, it's the opposite effect. It shuts those deer down. And the same thing with snowfall, especially heavy snowfall. You get a couple inches of snow, deer are almost like kids in a playground. They're gonna be frolicking in that stuff the next day, especially if that temperature is in that same range. If the temperature is brutal and you only have a little bit of snow, different story. But the cold weather, that's something I really pay attention to. And those barometric shifts also are something I pay attention to.
Barometric pressure does affect deer movement. But one thing that GPS studies have showed us is that deer really move about the same amount every day, regardless of what's going on. That doesn't mean that the barometer change isn't going to change that movement, because it does. It changes where deer move, and it may change at what time periods they move. So in hunting, you do need to be prepared for it. When it goes up, when it goes down, it's gonna have a big effect on how your hunting plans should change.
Anything in that 29 barometric pressure range is ideal for deer movement, and that's something you want to pay attention to. But the weather itself, cold weather, when you're thinking cold-blooded, think about 10 degrees lower than normal, and then try to stick it out as long as you can, especially during these gun seasons that might overlap with the rut. You can really see some fantastic deer activity.
Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by
So I've been hunting out here. It's north central Nebraska, Goose Creek Outfitters. I've been doing it for years. I think this is my 6th or 7th year out here. I've gotten a nice buck every single year. And the thing that I've learned here is that if you have that right recipe of weather, some years it's warm and you're almost hunting those deer like it's September bow season. You're trying to catch them in the food plots, the feeding areas, the transition areas. at the cusp hours of daylight and dusk. But if you get that temperature right at about the normal temperature of the year, about 30, 35, or a little bit below that, those deer in this area are normally still in the rut, normally at the tail end of the rut. And what really works here during that tail end of the rut, or even midway through the rut here in mid-November, is that you have these bucks scent checking these little patches of, they call timber. It's really not much timber. It's some of it's willows, some of it's cedar, some of it's just hedgerows, and those does will hole up in there and they'll stay in there all day long. And you might not think it's much. You might think it's a small patch of trees. Those deer get in there and that weather changes, those bucks are going to really start cruising. And in a state like this, they really roam farther and farther every day. So this year's hunt, perfect recipe of everything. Not a lot of wind, which is unusual for here, just light winds, 5 mile an hour, west, northwest, perfect for most of our stands. The other thing, the temperatures were perfect. We woke up, it was single digits, but that wasn't too far off. And also I knew that those daytime temperatures were getting up into the 30s, mid-30s. Even though, let's say that temperature, I think that first morning was right near zero, those daytime temperatures were still getting up into the mid-30s. So that helps counterbalance what I say that 10-degree rule is. Those deer during the day, if it's 35, 40 degrees, they do shut down during the day a little bit. They do will be a little bit more active at night, and we did find that through the trail cameras. But right at first light, those bucks, they've got 3 or 4 hours or more, 5, 6 hours before that temperature starts getting up there again. So they're going to get in a lot of cruising, a lot of breeding activity in those first hours of the daylight. Exactly what happened to me that first morning. He's right here. Do you see him? I'm going to pass him up. There's a deer right here. Yeah, that's a good buck. He's coming right out to the edge of the cedar here. Yeah, that's a good deer. I'm going to pass him up. He's really nice, but I'm going to pass him up. Just stay on him. Do you have good video? He's got a big brow tine, doesn't he? Stay on him. Stay on him.
When it's this cold and you have an adrenaline rush, I can't even talk. I'm pretty excited. You know, your tendency is to whisper because you don't want to scare deer, but my deer is down, so I don't have to whisper anymore. Oh, shit. Wait, look. Get on, over there. What is that? There's a deer right there. Is that my doe, or is that my buck, or is that just a doe? It's right where my buck died.
I still see your buck. He's dead.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay, opening day in Nebraska never disappoints. Goose Creek Outfitters, Scott and LaKayla Fink. It's just incredible, the Sandhills, and I can never get enough of it, but I feel very blessed this morning. We want to have somebody else hunt this spot, so we're going to go over real quiet. Just tag our buck. Make sure he's down. Be happy about it. I think that's him right there. I think that's him. So cool. Wow. What a deer. His antlers are frozen. Look at that. He's got one little nipped off tine, I did see that, but he's a beautiful buck. Awesome deer. Yeah, he's been doing some fighting. That Hornady SST bullet, that's where it came out. When he was quartering away, I knew that I wanted to put him down quick. He went about 20 yards. That did the trick. Nice buck.
For me, yes, I know this is an outfitted hunt, but to me, this is family. I mean, we come to the Fink's place here, and we're staying in their house, and we're eating meals with their family, and we're all friends, which is really cool for me because, you know, anytime you have that deer camp camaraderie, nothing beats it. I don't care how big the deer are, I don't care how many deer there are, but when it's about family and friends, that makes the hunt that much more sweet because it's the memories. Not so much of going out there and shooting a big buck. And believe me when I say that, I truly mean it. It's seeing the kids grow up. It's seeing that buddy that you haven't seen since last year. It's sharing a beer together. It's just having good times. And it's having a friend like this come up and greet you at the end of the day.
Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by
So I've already told you about the great attributes of the Kilo 10K ABS binocular, but you know what else is really unique about this binocular? Is that you can pair it with your rifle scope, any Sierra rifle scope. This is the Sierra 6 3D 18x44, one of my favorites. Not only is it a lightweight, more compact scope for the backcountry when I'm hunting elk, but it works ideally in mule deer or whitetail country. This binocular works in tandem with the rifle scope, the Sierra series of rifle scopes, and it talks to them. You have to put the Sig Sauer app on your smartphone and pair the two together, and once you do that, Bluetooth takes over the rest. You can set it up either to change the reticle, so when you range a target out there at 420 yards, the reticle automatically changes. Or you can set your scope up with a series of lighted reticle dots from 100 to 800 yards, and you are spot on with this working with that. That's what you want on hunting, a little teamwork. We're here today with Neil Davies, Marketing Director for Hornady, and Neil's got some great news about bullets, especially what's going on with the full line of hunting ammunition.
Yeah, that's right. So, we're out here hunting with Precision Hunter with our brand new 7mm PRC cartridge. Right here, this one's obviously loaded with the ELDX. So this features our heat shield tip technology. So our ballistic development group, a bunch of guys back at work that work in the lab, and
They're real smart guys.
way smarter than me. Trust me, they can do math. But we have a Doppler radar, and they're using the Doppler radar to do some testing. And we have the CX projectiles, or at the time we had the GMX projectile, right? So they started looking at that across the Doppler radar, doing a bunch of testing, and they wanted to make that bullet just a little bit better, right? So what they discovered is that some of those pressure leaving grooves, because on a monolithic bullet, a solid bullet, you have to have a place for that metal to flow as it goes through the rifling. It's also a location where you can do some crimping and things like that too, but its most important application is to allow that metal on the bullet to flow as it's engraving on the rifling. So instead of making a sharp 90 on there for that pressure leaving groove, now we worked and found the right angle to make a radius for that pressure leaving groove, and the air flows off it just a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
So now with the advancements and the enhancement of that particular bullet, the GMX that it was, we now made that change, and then it also benefits from the inclusion of the heat shield tip, which, as many of the folks out there understand, we made a discovery also with the Doppler radar that conventional polymer tips were melting in flight due to aerodynamic heating.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now that takes place with muzzle velocity, ambient temperature, time, all those things are part of that. But when you're trying to have extended range hunting ammunition, you've got to have a known projectile that you can use to calculate in your trajectory solver. So by the inclusion of the heat shield tip in those CX projectiles now, we have an extended range monolithic hunting bullet that you can use our solver, the Ford-Off ballistic solver, to get an accurate trajectory calculations for longer and extended range shooting with a monolithic projectile.
One of the coolest experiences I ever had was being invited down to Hornady and watching that Doppler radar, and we were actually shooting targets out beyond 1,000 yards. I mean, it was just the most awesome thing, and then just looking at that data roll in. I mean, that's revolutionary in bullets and hunting.
Yeah, the Doppler radar has led us to numerous advents that have benefited ultimately the shooter, the consumer out there.
Well, let's go put one to the test.
Okay.